Hello and welcome to the Philippines. This is a bit of a tribute to truckers, and the whole transportation industry here in the Philippines and across the world. Here in the last few days, I've read a couple articles about the difficulties that they are having. And here in the Philippines, containers are piling up at the ports, especially in Manila, and truckers are having a hard time getting in. Companies are not going into sending the people in. Uh, I don't know if it's a problem with customs or what it is in releasing the vehicles, the bureaucracy, the getting the companies. They probably don't want to take those. They want that free storage at the container terminals as long as they can get it. While we're in a bit of a quarantine here. Anyway, this was a new truck dealership, and they were nice enough to let me get up there and look around a little bit. Very seldom do I see a truck with a sleeper in it, and yet these truck drivers, usually two or more to a truck, because they don't have. You need to bring your own lumper, your own unloader and loader with you, and sometimes they'll have 3 or 4 people in a truck like this going, and thank them for letting me jump in their truck and look around a little bit. And this is something you don't see very often, a 2-axle, like a 3-axle, 2 drive axles there. Many of the trucks have, almost all of them are cab over engine, COEs. And I was surprised by the number of new trucks I see on the roads here. You see some older ones, of course, but there are an awful lot of newer trucks on the road. Number of different manufacturers that you don't see in the U.S. And of course Europe has their own manufacturers as well. Volvo, I think, is a big one in Europe, and they've become bigger in the USA. But rarely see a Freightliner or a Kenworth here. Never seen a Western Star or a Peterbilt, I don't think. And this is your truck enforcer sitting outside of some of the business areas. You don't have scales, but you have somebody there, and they only allow certain types of trucks with certain weight limits during certain hours to come in and through their areas. This big heavy haul truck here, very rarely do I see one of these. This was down not so far from the new 3rd bridge they're building in Cebu City, and they must have brought something really big and heavy in there. But yeah, you don't see that type of thing too often. You don't see truck scales very often. I do see them down by the piers in Cebu City. Of course, it's very important when you're loading. Now here's a Kenworth, and I also saw coming up here. They had a Freightliner, I believe it was, with a sleeper berth on it, and they transport LPG, propane type containers. This particular company, and one of very few. Now, when I went to Vietnam a year or so ago, less than a year ago, I saw a lot of Freightliners, a lot of internationals over there, but very rarely do I see one with a sleeper, especially a big sleeper like this. Very unusual. Anyway, these truckers, and here's the Freightliner in the same place a few weeks later. These truckers here and in the U.S. and perhaps across Europe and Australia and the rest of the world as well, many of their truck stops, their travel centers, are pretty much closed down except for buying fuel. And this is a typical middle class, weight-wise, type truck that you see in the Philippines, with the doors open on the side, and people load and unload from either one side or oftentimes both sides. That thing will, on hinges up there, you can open the back or the sides. Very unique. But these truckers are having a hard time getting food, and my sister in the U.S. up in Minnesota was telling me that yeah, there are cases where where people are bringing food down to the truck stops because the restaurants are closed. They can buy fuel there, but the showers, the restaurants are closed, and they're putting up with a lot in order to deliver all these goods. And here as well, lots of different checkpoints in different areas. Sometimes the LGUs, the local government organizations, like the local barangays, they will, whereas they might get passed through the federal checkpoints here in the Philippines, the local people will shut them down and say, no, you don't have authorization to come in here. Well, this was a rather unique and more modern type dock system that I don't see very often here in the Cebu City area. There are a few areas with big warehouses, and they have a lot of the same weight laws that you have in many countries, but little enforcement, I think. Occasionally, you see trucks with really bad tires, but I've been impressed how many new trucks and trucks that seem to be well maintained as well. This was down by Carbone Public Market, downtown Cebu City. Huge public market down there. I've done a few videos about the Carbone Public Market, and a lot of times there's not space inside of the market for these trucks to get in, so they have to unload outside of the market area, and then people come with their little push carts or whatever to bring it in. Water trucks. I think that water company is down. I think they pull a lot of water out of the river and then purify it, clean it up a little bit anyway. Very common to see the people riding in the on the box, in the box, on the equipment on the box. And this guy was having an issue with some low wires over there, so it took him quite a while. He had several people in the back lifting the wires for him. I have occasionally seen wires that have been knocked down, and would be very easy to do, depending upon the street that you've gone into. Another thing with the Philippines being a land of so many islands is that virtually, I would guess at least 80% of the trucks, sooner or later, they end up on a ferry going someplace. And I've talked to a number of drivers over the last 4+ years, and some get paid a daily rate, some get paid by the job. They get paid so much to deliver a load, type thing. Here you got watermelons. I think watermelons come from Mindanao generally, or I think some come from over by Iloilo City on Panay Island as well. And Filipinos, if there's a camera within half a mile or a kilometer, they see it and they pose for the camera. This guy did. Anyway, they're transferring it to the smaller little truck there, whether he's going to take it into the market or up into the mountains to another barangay. And then here's one of those ro-ro ferries, roll on, roll off. Hundreds, maybe thousands of these in the Philippines and many other countries. Uh, and this is how they travel. So many of the goods come from even the produce. There are certain islands, certain parts of islands that specialize in certain fruits and vegetables, and they come in by truck and they have to get on. And now here I was going from Dumaguete, actually the south end of Dumaguete, over to Cebu City, over to Santander in the south of Cebu, and a few waves out there. It was pretty exciting, bouncing around out there. There were a few people a little afraid and put on their life preservers. I don't think it was anywhere close to that, but if you don't swim, I guess that's a really good idea to be prepared. And if you have a vehicle, a motorbike, a car, whatever, and you want to travel on one of these ro-ro ferries, If it's a busy weekend or a holiday weekend, you may have to wait. You may have to wait to get on board because they're very likely, depending upon the port that you're at, there could be a long line of people waiting for that spot. Be interested to hear your stories, what's going on in your part of the world. Really a big shout out to all the truckers and all the other first line people out there, the nurses and doctors and staffs of hospitals, um, the security people, the police and the military people, everybody who was out there doing their job and trying to keep peace and order during all this. Anyway, interested to hear your thoughts on this and what's happening. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Safe travels to you all wherever you're at. And please stay safe and healthy. And I'll see you next time.